A cold, dreary evening settled over the small, forgotten farm where Eliza had spent most of her childhood. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the faint sounds of distress. Hooves struck the ground in uneven rhythm, barely audible beneath the sounds of the storm. But to Eliza, it was the unmistakable sign of something wrong. She had always had a strong connection to animals, a gift that her neighbors often called strange but beautiful. So when the soft, pitiful cries reached her ears, she didn't hesitate. She raced toward the source, her heart pounding, dread slowly sinking in. As she rounded the corner of the barn, Eliza froze. There in the corner of the hayloft lay a young colt, barely breathing. His fur was matted with mud and dirt, his bones visible through his frail body. He was shaking, his eyes wide with fear, but showing no signs of movement. It was clear this poor creature had been left to suffer, abandoned, forgotten. Her heart broke as she crouched down, her eyes meeting his. He flinched, clearly startled, and for a moment, Eliza wondered if he had given up. Was he too far gone to be saved? But Eliza's instinct took over. She didn't just see a dying colt. She saw a soul that needed help, a creature so innocent and broken that leaving him behind would be unforgivable. She reached out, her hand trembling, but full of determination. "I'm here," she whispered, her voice gentle. "I won't let you go through this alone." She couldn't save him with just words, but she knew she had to try. Gently, she ran her fingers through the colt's coarse coat, her breath shaky but resolute. For the first time, the colt blinked, his fearful eyes softening just a little, as if he realized she wasn't there to harm him. Eliza could feel the weight of the moment, the uncertainty of what came next. But she also knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the end for him. This was just the beginning. Eliza had always known there was something more in life than what people around her thought. She'd never been a rich girl or one with great expectations. She didn't have fancy training or special connections, just a heart full of love for animals. It was what had driven her to care for injured birds as a child, to help stray dogs, and in this moment, to save a colt no one else cared about. It wasn't that she was a professional, she was just Eliza. But the thing about her was that she never gave up. When the world seemed harsh and indifferent, she was there, offering a kind word, a soft touch, a promise that things could get better. Jasper, the colt she had just found, would be no different. He didn't trust her, not yet, and who could blame him? He had no reason to. He had lived through unimaginable pain and loneliness. But Eliza wasn't like anyone else who had passed through his life. She was different. For days she sat with him in silence, giving him time to adjust. She spoke to him softly, never rushing, never demanding anything in return. She was patient, letting him learn that he wasn't alone anymore. At first, Jasper refused to make eye contact. He would flinch every time Eliza approached, his fear still very much alive. But Eliza could see something deep in those eyes, just a flicker of hope, like a tiny spark waiting for the right moment to ignite. The first sign of progress came after several days when Eliza extended her hand to him, and for the briefest second, he didn't shy away. It was small, almost unnoticeable, but to Eliza it felt like a victory. Jasper was beginning to trust her, one tiny step at a time. The bond between them wasn't immediate. It took time, patience, kindness, and unconditional love. Jasper had suffered so much, and Eliza knew it wouldn't be easy to erase the scars he carried. But every time she looked at him, she could see a little more light in his eyes, and that gave her hope. Eliza had no idea how this journey would unfold, but she knew one thing for sure. She would never give up on him. They had a long road ahead, but together they were going to find their way. She could feel it in her bones. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing day, Eliza could feel the weight of responsibility settle deeper into her chest. Jasper was no longer the fragile colt she had found in the barn. He was beginning to show signs of life again, but the road to recovery was long and uncertain. Every movement seemed like a challenge to him. His legs wobbled when he tried to stand, and his body was so weak that even the smallest of tasks seemed impossible. Yet Eliza never wavered. She didn't see the broken creature he had been. She saw the fighter he was becoming. At first, the mornings were the hardest. Every time Eliza arrived in the barn, Jasper would raise his head from the hay, his eyes wide with uncertainty. He had every reason to be scared. The pain of his past still haunted him, and the world he had known had taught him to trust no one. But Eliza was persistent. She would kneel down beside him, always gentle, always patient. "You're strong, Jasper. You can do this," she would say, her voice filled with encouragement. And every day there was a little more fight in him, a flicker of understanding that she wasn't there to hurt him. She was there to help. It wasn't until one chilly morning that Eliza witnessed the first true sign of his progress. As she stepped into the barn, she found Jasper standing on his own, swaying slightly but holding his ground. His legs were still shaky, but he wasn't collapsing. He was trying. And that one moment, when Jasper took his first independent step, was enough to make Eliza's heart soar. She clapped her hands with excitement, her eyes brimming with tears. "You did it, Jasper! You did it!" she cheered, her voice shaking with emotion. Jasper's eyes met hers, and for the first time since she had found him, she saw something new in those dark eyes. Trust. His lips quivered slightly, and he took another tentative step forward, this time towards her. It was as if he had heard her encouragement and decided to believe it. With every careful step, he began to grow stronger, and the bond between them deepened. But the journey was far from easy. Some days the pain would hit him hard, and he would collapse back into the straw, exhausted, defeated. Other days the fear would creep in, and he would back away, unsure if Eliza could truly help him. Still, she never pushed him. She gave him the space he needed, but always stayed close, always ready to help when he was ready to trust again. The pain wasn't gone, and the fear didn't disappear overnight. But with Eliza's unwavering presence, Jasper began to rebuild. Slowly, piece by piece, he was finding the strength to face his demons, and Eliza was with him every step of the way. She had witnessed his transformation from the moment he had been brought to her door, broken and alone. And now, as she watched him slowly stand up on his own, the first glimmers of hope filling his eyes, Eliza couldn't help but think, this was only the beginning. Jasper was becoming something more than the colt she had found on that rainy evening. He was becoming a warrior, and together they were going to face the challenges ahead, no matter how many there were. And for the first time in a long while, Eliza dared to believe that they both had a future filled with hope. What had begun as a quiet, almost desperate connection had blossomed into something much stronger. As the days turned into months, Eliza's trust in Jasper grew, as did his trust in her. Their bond became unbreakable, a silent promise between them. Each shared glance, each gentle touch, spoke volumes. They didn't need words to understand each other. They could feel it in their hearts. But the real test of their bond came on one fateful day. Eliza was walking Jasper through the field, the sun shining brightly as he trotted beside her, his movements still somewhat unsure, but gaining more confidence with each step. The grass swayed gently in the breeze, and for the first time, it seemed as though everything was right in the world. That was when it happened. From behind the trees, a loud noise erupted, a crash, followed by frantic hooves. Eliza's heart skipped a beat. In an instant, a wild horse, panicked and uncontrolled, galloped toward them, eyes wide with fear. Without thinking, Eliza stepped in front of Jasper, trying to shield him from the oncoming danger. Her hand reached out, but she could feel the anxiety creeping up in her chest. This was a test of everything they had gone through together. And then, without hesitation, Jasper took a step forward. He stood beside her, his body trembling but resolute. His ears flicked, his tail raised in a silent challenge to the wild horse, as if to say, "I will not be pushed around anymore." In that moment, Eliza knew Jasper had become more than just a colt. He had become a protector, not just for her, but for himself. And as the wild horse backed down, retreating into the woods, Eliza's heart swelled with pride. Her bond with Jasper was no longer about saving him. It was about them saving each other. Together they had learned to fight back, to overcome, and to stand tall. Jasper had become the horse he was always meant to be, and Eliza had become the woman she had always dreamed of being, the one who believed in him, no matter what. Eliza knew that Jasper's transformation wasn't just for her to see, it had to be proven to the world. The whispers in the town had been getting louder. People said she was wasting her time, that a horse so damaged could never truly recover, let alone compete. "What makes you think he'll ever be anything but broken?" they'd say behind her back, their doubt as sharp as any blade. Eliza had learned not to let their words sink into her heart, but that didn't mean they didn't sting. The doubts of others, the harsh judgment of those who had no idea what she and Jasper had been through, weighed heavily on her. But one thing Eliza had learned from the bond they'd forged was this: when she believed in something, she believed with every fiber of her being. So when the invitation came for a local riding competition, Eliza knew it was the moment she had been waiting for. Not just for herself, but for Jasper. It was their time to shine, to show everyone that a horse who had been cast aside wasn't just worthy of love and care. He was capable of greatness. The day of the competition arrived, and the air was thick with anticipation. The crowd buzzed, their eyes lingering on Eliza and Jasper as they walked toward the entrance. The other horses were sleek, well-groomed, their riders confident in their polished appearance. And then there was Eliza, wearing a simple riding outfit, her hair pulled back, with Jasper standing next to her, still carrying the battle scars of his past. Eliza felt her stomach tighten. This wasn't just about riding anymore. This was about proving to the world and to herself that they had come too far to be underestimated. As she mounted Jasper, the crowd fell into an uneasy silence. Some whispered among themselves, unsure whether they were watching a fairy tale or a disaster waiting to happen. But Eliza ignored them. Her hands on Jasper's reins were steady, her heart aligned with his every breath. Then the signal was given. Jasper's muscles tensed beneath her, ready to move. And in that moment, Eliza knew something had shifted. This wasn't just her dream anymore. It was theirs, together. The first few minutes were nerve-wracking. The course was challenging, with tight turns, hurdles to jump, and obstacles that required precision. Eliza could feel the tension in Jasper's body as he hesitated at the first jump. But this time, there was something different in his eyes. A spark of courage. He trusted her, and she trusted him. With a deep breath, Eliza urged him forward. The crowd gasped as Jasper soared over the first hurdle. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Eliza's heart raced as she guided him through the course. The path was tough, and several riders had already faltered, but she and Jasper kept moving. Every challenge, every twist, was met with determination. There was no backing down now. And then came the final hurdle, the largest one yet. Jasper's ears flicked back in hesitation as he looked up at it. Eliza's heart pounded in her chest. The crowd held its breath. This was the moment. With a deep breath, Eliza whispered, "We can do this, Jasper. Just one more step. Together." Without another word, she urged him forward. Time seemed to slow as Jasper galloped toward the massive obstacle. His hooves hit the ground with precision, his body coiled with the power of everything they had worked for. As they neared the jump, Eliza felt the heat of the moment rise in her chest. The crowd was watching, waiting for the inevitable failure. But Jasper had other plans. With a powerful thrust, he launched himself into the air, his legs extending with grace and strength. Eliza held on, guiding him with everything she had. And in one magnificent leap, they cleared the jump. The crowd erupted into applause, their doubts shattered. Eliza's heart soared. They had done it. The judges smiled, nodding in approval, but it was the look in the eyes of the other riders that told the real story. They had seen something they didn't expect. They had seen the impossible become reality. The victory wasn't just about winning the competition. It was about proving something far more important. That belief, when paired with determination, can turn even the most impossible dreams into reality. Eliza stood tall on Jasper, the weight of their victory heavy on her shoulders but light in her heart. She knew this was only the beginning. There would be more challenges ahead. But as she looked at Jasper, she saw not the broken colt she had once found, but the warrior he had become. He wasn't just her savior anymore. He had become a hero in his own right. And Eliza understood something in that moment. She hadn't just saved Jasper, he had saved her too. He had reminded her that strength doesn't come from perfection. It comes from the will to fight, even when everything seems lost. As they walked off the field side by side, Eliza couldn't help but smile. They had proven everyone wrong, but most importantly, they had proven something to themselves, that together there was no limit to what they could achieve. After the competition, things started to change for Eliza and Jasper. The doubts that had once followed them seemed to fade into the background, replaced by a new sense of respect and admiration from the townspeople. But as the applause of victory settled, Eliza couldn't shake the feeling that this success, though monumental, wasn't the end. There was a nagging thought in the back of her mind, a thought she couldn't ignore. The victory had brought her and Jasper closer than ever, but something was missing. Eliza had always felt that her journey with Jasper wasn't just about riding. It wasn't even just about overcoming the physical hurdles of his past. It was about something deeper, something unspoken, but undeniably real. Jasper had come into her life like a storm, sweeping through the barriers she had built around herself, and now she found herself at a crossroads. With his newfound strength, Jasper had the potential to be something even greater than she had imagined, a true champion. But was that the life she had in mind for him? Did she want him to become a tool of competition, or did she want to preserve the bond they had worked so hard to build? The truth was, Eliza had grown attached to him in a way that went beyond the ambition of winning ribbons or trophies. Jasper had saved her from her own doubts, his quiet strength reminding her of the power of perseverance. She loved him not for what he could do, but for who he was, a living, breathing testament to resilience. And that's when it hit her. She didn't want to ride him just to win. She wanted him to be free. For the first time since their journey began, Eliza made a decision that wasn't about proving herself or the world wrong. It was about doing what felt right for both her and Jasper. With tears in her eyes, Eliza turned to Jasper, standing in the stable with his head low, eyes full of trust. She knew he had more to give to the world than just being a competition horse. She had watched him fight against the darkness of his past, and now it was time for him to find his own path. That evening, she made a phone call to a nearby ranch, a sanctuary for rescued horses where animals live freely and thrive without the constraints of competition. They were known for nurturing horses back to full health and giving them the freedom to roam, learn, and grow in peace. The decision was difficult, but it was the right one. Eliza spent the next few days reflecting on the significance of her choice. The town and even her family were surprised. People wondered why she would give up on the spotlight, the fame, and the glory they all assumed was just around the corner for her and Jasper. But Eliza knew better. She knew the truth, and the truth was that the greatest gift she could give Jasper was the freedom to be himself, away from the pressure of competition. The news spread fast. Some people couldn't understand why she would choose to let go of everything they had worked for. But Eliza felt no regret. She knew she had given Jasper a chance to heal, to find himself, and that was worth more than any trophy or title. When Eliza led Jasper to the ranch, she saw the vast expanse of green fields stretching out before him. It was more than just a safe place. It was a world of possibilities. As Jasper took his first steps onto the land, he lifted his head high, his eyes bright with a spark of freedom. Eliza stood at the edge of the field, her heart swelling with a bittersweet joy. She watched as Jasper trotted toward the other horses, his gait strong and confident. No longer the broken colt she had first found, but a true symbol of resilience. For a moment, Eliza considered what her life would be like without him by her side. It was hard to imagine, but it wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. As she turned to leave, knowing her decision had given Jasper the chance to truly live, she realized something profound. She had learned to let go, and in doing so, she had set both herself and Jasper free. There were no longer any limits to what they could achieve, and no matter where their paths led, their bond would never be broken. The ranch was their new home, and Eliza was at peace. Jasper had come into her life to teach her a lesson about love, sacrifice, and freedom. And in return, she had given him the one thing he needed most, the space to be his true self. As Eliza watched him run across the field, surrounded by the horses who had once been like him, she smiled through her tears. This was the resolution she had never expected, but it was the one that had been waiting for them all along. Months passed since Eliza made the life-altering decision to set Jasper free, The small town where they had once lived, with its cobblestone streets and rolling hills, had heard the whispers of their story, the girl who gave up everything to ensure her horse lived a life of freedom. At first, people didn't understand, but over time they began to see what Eliza had known all along. Her bond with Jasper was built on something far more profound than trophies or applause. Eliza visited the ranch often, watching from a distance as Jasper flourished in his new environment. The once shy and broken horse was now a symbol of strength and grace. His coat had gained its shine, his steps were lighter, and his spirit, so often hidden behind layers of fear and uncertainty, had fully emerged. He roamed the fields with the other horses, but every time he spotted Eliza, his eyes would brighten, and he'd come running to her with the same energy and excitement he had once shown her on their first ride. One day, Eliza returned to the ranch with Maya, who was now old enough to understand the true meaning of love, sacrifice, and the lessons she had learned from her mother's journey. They stood together at the edge of the field, watching Jasper and the other horses run free. Maya reached out, taking Eliza's hand, and without saying a word, Eliza knew her daughter understood. She understood that true greatness wasn't measured by awards, but by the choices we make, the love we give, and the courage it takes to do what's right, even when it's hard. As Eliza looked out across the horizon, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew that she had given Jasper the best life he could have, one where he was free to be himself, unburdened by expectations. And in return, Jasper had given her something she would never forget, a lesson in humility, love, and the power of letting go. The legacy of Eliza and Jasper wasn't found in the claps of applause or in the crowds cheering their victories. It was found in the quiet moments, the simple, beautiful moments where two souls connected and a young woman made a choice that would forever change the course of her life in the life of the horse who had taught her what true freedom meant. The story of Eliza and Jasper became more than just a tale of triumph over adversity. It was a reminder that the greatest victories often come from the sacrifices we make for those we love. Jasper would never be forgotten. His story was one of redemption, of a life reclaimed, of a bond that stood the test of time. And Eliza's legacy, the legacy she passed down to Maya, was one of selflessness, courage, and the understanding that sometimes letting go is the most powerful act of love. As Eliza and Jasper walked together one last time across the field, Eliza realized that she didn't need to prove anything to the world. She had already won the most important victory of all, the love and peace that comes from knowing she had done right by the horse who had once been broken, but who was now free. And so their story continued, not as a tale of competition, but as a timeless example of the power of love, sacrifice, and the true meaning of freedom. As Eliza and Jasper's journey shows us, true greatness lies not in external rewards, but in the choices we make, the sacrifices we endure, and the love we give. Now we want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment where letting go or making a difficult choice led to something greater? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about the power of love, sacrifice, and believing in those who need us most. And if you were inspired by Eliza and Jasper's incredible journey, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more heartwarming stories, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder of the incredible power of believing in yourself and others. Together, let's continue to spread hope, love, and inspiration to those who need it most.